Okay, you are live streaming it on YouTube.
Yes, yes. We have channels
Okay, got it.
for specific for this purpose.
Got it. Normally, irrespective of the 2 or 3 years of COVID, sometimes the bandwidth does misbehave.
Yes, yes, that happened few times, but okay, we have to do that.
So, definitely. In fact, it's
Because
become better.
Our system is this way, it is better.
Yeah. At home, for example, I'm using a BSNL. And what these guys have done, and somehow I am still with BSNL, they give me a very good service. The only flip side with BSNL is they don't have these wires in underground conduits. So they have taken these wires and hung it on poles. And so often, very often, the wires get cut.
Something happens, some vehicle goes.
Some vehicle goes, yes. And then your net is down. And then you are scrambling to figure out how to get it up. But otherwise, the service is great. So everybody is amused when I say I'm still with BSNL. I'm that, very BSNL fan.
Yes.
In fact, I have a BSNL connection since the last 27 years and I still continue with BSNL. I vouch for BSNL.
Yes, yes. But the problem is they are not reliable. They are working for private.
No. Interestingly, for me, in my area, BSNL is giving me excellent service. So for example, my phone for BSNL in the last 27 years would have not gone conked off more than 5 times or 6 times.
Okay, great.
In 27 years. So gives me great service that way. Okay, I think
let's start. We have 6 people.
I think we can start.
Total, including me. So I'll be, today the topic is diaspora media, diasporic media, whatever we call. And you have Dr. Abhar Chawla, and who has done work on this area, especially on Mios in Mewat. He has done how they have used new media to create their community, community interaction, so many other issues he has done, and that it was published also by PW, and books are available in Amazon, so you can also have a look. So he's a specialist on media, new media, journalism, and he's also guest faculty in various universities and colleges. So today he'll be talking on diasporic media. So over to you, Abhar.
Thanks, Sada. Okay. So you can switch off your video if you want. I think it's perfectly fine. Okay. Before we start, okay, Abhishek, Nirmal, Rehma, and Swadesh. How do I call you Swadesh? Do I call you Swadesh or do I call you something else?
Swadesh.
Swadesh only.
Swadesh only? Okay. So I'll call you Swadesh. It's much simpler to call by the first names. As we go along, you can stop me at any moment of time if you have a doubt or if you want to add something. So before we start, when we talk about diasporic media and when we are talking about diaspora, the most important thing that we need to talk about is A, identity, and B, media. So who among you is going to tell me what do we mean by identity? Anyone? What does identity mean? What is identity? Where did Swadesh go? Swadesh, I think, dropped off. Okay. Rema, Vijaya, what would you define as identity? Nirmal? Anyone? Guys, can you hear my voice?
Sir, you are asking diaspora identity.
Okay. I'm just asking about identity. Swadesh is there.
Sir, it means the belongingness.
When I use the word identity, so Vijaya, what would be your identity?
Nation is our identity first.
Is nation your only identity, or is there and while we are talking, you can always look up your Google or whatever you are you can do it. How would you define an identity? So Vijaya, for example, I can see you that now on the screen. Vijaya, how would you define your identity?
Name is
Is name an identity, or is there something else as an identity? Swadesh?
yeah, sir. Name and is what give identity to that person. Name, religion, caste, sometimes.
Okay. So normally name does not come as an identity. Name is a typical categorization that you've been given by your parents or whatever it is. Your
Yeah.
identity would be in typically in terms of religion, your caste, your sex, and every individual has multiple identities. So if we were to,
Yes.
so first and foremost, whenever we are talking about human beings, Vijay, can you put your mic on mute? Okay. So more often than not, whenever we're talking about human beings and we are talking about human affairs, one needs to understand about identity. And more often than not, how I define myself in the larger ecosystem will define, and especially that's where the diasporic studies come about. The more moot question becomes the question of identity. In fact, if you look around and you see the contemporary politics, you will realize the fact that there is a whole lot of identity questions which are coming into picture. What's my religion? What's the language I speak? What's the culture? So for example, did I as an Oriya originate the Rasgulla, or is it I, a Bengali, who originated the Rasgulla? It's almost like an identity for the community. Correct? Hi, Anshif Ali. Some characters are individual things of their own. Absolutely. Rehma, you are absolutely right. In fact, you can, if you have a problem speaking, you can put it in the chat and I can read it out for others. So more often than not, whenever we are going to be discussing about diaspora, in fact, whenever we talk about human beings and more about diaspora, there is always this question about identity, first and foremost. Secondly, let's define what is media. So what do you define as media? Anybody? How would you define media?
Media is a mode of communication.
Media is a mode of communication.
It's a tool.
Everything that we use for communication actually becomes a media. So today, when I am communicating with you using Zoom and the internet, that's media. And because of the fact that human being is a social being, more often than not, we are always communicating with our fellow beings. There is an intra communication where we are talking to ourselves, and we always want to talk to others. So communication becomes a basic need of human beings. In fact, one of the reasons, one of the ways of punishment which is being done is to put a person in isolation, so that he or she cannot communicate with fellow beings. That's a form of punishment. That has always been a form of punishment since historical times. So if we are able to understand the question of identity and the question of the communication needs, we will be able to very easily understand diasporic media. So far, so good. Guys, so far, so good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Keep giving me an indication, because otherwise I'm staring at a blank screen And yeah, Vijaya, thank you. Keep or sending me a chat saying yes, you can hear me, because again, as I said, our communication is being mediated by a technology thing, and the technology thing fails. So let's start. I have a presentation. Let me put up my presentation. Can you hang on? Wait. Just a sec. It started off with summing up. I was on the last slide. So let's come back. Okay. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So we are talking about diasporic media. Again, as I said, you are always free to stop me at any moment of time in terms of, try to ask a question or to add something to whatever I'm saying. That way, the interaction, the presentation will be more interactive, and we are able to enjoy this time that we are spending together. Okay. So quick about the background. People migrate one place to other. They carry not only their physical self, but their way of life, worldview, social culture. More often than not, historically, we have seen whenever we are traveling, and an adult self always has a particular way in which he or she leads a life. All of us lead a life in a particular way. We get fixated on the food that we eat, the language that we speak, our routines. And if at any moment of our adult life we are made to change, or to change our place of stay, we tend to pick up certain things and carry it to wherever we are going. And over a period of time, as more and more people migrate, hang on, their social behavior further gets strengthened, and unique characteristics through information. There are these unique characteristics which set up, and through information dispersal through individual networks. Again, as I said, human being is a social being. So that is the background. And what we are going to do in this unit is to understand the diaspora's need of communication. There is something called host and home. We are talking about hyper localization of the diasporic media. And let's come back. Let's quickly come to what is media. Plural of medium fulfills the need of information dissemination. Whenever we talk about heterogeneous group of masses, we are talking about the concept of mass media. Before the advent of print or radio or TV, remember, media was there since the start of the humankind or the human being. So people used to communicate using drums, using smoke signals. You know about rock paintings. These were all ways of communicating till the time we human beings developed a language, and then came the print. Remember also the fact that before the printing press was invented, people wrote by hand. There were scribes who used to write. So media and the need for communication is as old as the human beings. And the role of media has always been to inform, educate, entertain, and persuade. And why? To create a social, political, economic, and environment awareness. As soon as as people civilized, as societies got formed, institutions got formed, there was a need to a culture people into the institutions. How do we today know what we need to do, let's say on the birth of a new child, or in a wedding function, or when there's a death? This is communicated to us. Hi Vijay, good to see you in a video. And this is how we get through various media sources. So a lot of our knowledge or socialization or acculturing happens to be from, let's say, movies. So today, for example, look at a very interesting fact. There is a North Indian and specifically Punjabi North Indian cultural festival called Karwa Chauth. It's an extremely rural Punjabi. It originated as an extremely rural Punjabi festival. Today, I see a lot of women from various states and various castes and various cultural backgrounds doing Karwa Chauth. In fact, it's acquired some sort of a commercial angle to it, but that's how media tends to educate, inform, and persuade people to do a particular thing. So some historical examples of media being used. For example, Mahatma Gandhi, when he fought against the British colonial rule in South Africa, launched something called an Indian Opinion. In fact, the first newspaper of India, the Bengal Gazette, in 1780 was catering to the British settlers. It had a lot of timings of when the ships were coming from Britain, and a lot of other information which was used by the British colonizers out here. So these are some historical examples. If you search, you will come across a lot of other historical examples. So let's first start by defining. More often than not, it's always good to define any concept. A diasporic media is perceived as the media that are produced by and for migrants. In fact, the term migrants also has undergone change. As we go along, we will see how, and deal with issues that are of specific interest for the member of the diasporic communities. This is a 2012 definition, and I keep quoting whoever has defined it. So various people define various concepts in various different ways. So inevitably, it's always a good idea to start with the definition and who has defined it. Media that are produced by and for the migrants and deal with issues that are of specific interest for the members of the diasporic community. And they are platforms for self-expression, the representation of cultural artifacts, and the contestations of negative stereotypes by migrant people in public sphere. More often than not, we will always see that when, let's say any one of us decides to, take ourselves out from our established or current setting and move into a foreign setting. When I say foreign, I don't mean outside the country, I mean any place. So even if we are moving from one locality, shifting our house from one locality to another locality, or we decide to go and study in a university which is at a distant place, we are always, befuddled in terms of the fact there are these new set of people who have a different culture than ours. For example, I remember the time, when I went to a particular, so for example, I'm an IITian. I did my engineering. Subsequently, I shifted over to humanities. So when, I moved from Delhi and I did my engineering from IIT Varanasi, I moved into UP. There was a whole different culture in terms of what I ate for breakfast, how the people interacted, how they would understand a particular thing. And more often than not, individuals get stuck for, how to express themselves. So diasporic medias are platforms for self-expression, representation of cultural artifacts, and contestation of negative stereotypes. So how, let's say you come from a student comes from a rural area, and in a rural area, a particular way of dressing is frowned upon when that person goes into an urban setting. Now that's a negative stereotype. And so you use media to contest those negative stereotypes. So what are the functions of diasporic media? Production of cultural relevant and locally vital information, orientation and connectivity roles, open space for self-reflection. Whenever people are traveling to foreign cultures, they suddenly feel a sense of rootlessness. There are no roots. You come across a new way of speaking, new way of eating, new way of understanding things. And that is where media helps a person, do some sort of an acculturation, some sort of a self-reflection, reinforce identities and sense of belonging. Because inevitably, if you take, the identity from the embodied person, you suddenly feel a sense of rootlessness. There are no roots. And if you come across people who are NRIs, you will see they are trying to search for some roots. The recreation of alternative imaginative spaces alongside existing mappings. So more often than not, when people are made to go to an alien culture, they would like to carry something, some identity stuff, some symbolic stuff. Then contribution to the ethnic diversity of a multi-ethnic public space. A set of people want to show that they are also a part of the larger sphere. See, more often than not, all of us are trying to establish ourselves. We want to show that we are there and we count. So all these are various functions of diasporic media. Having once defined what is the diasporic media, guys, any questions till now? I hope I'm not going too fast. Guys, I hope I'm not going too fast.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not going too fast now.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So again, as I said, at any moment of time, you feel like adding something or asking a question, please feel free to stop. That's the best way to go in a class. And unfortunately, because we are online and cannot see each other, we have to strive a little, the way we operate has to be slightly different. So that is why I keep stopping in between. Okay. A set of network which fulfills the information needs of diaspora and helps them retain vital links with the host and home countries. So now these people who have migrated or moved or dislocated have connections with the host country. So for example, when indentured laborers were taken to Fiji or to various other places, their families were back home. Today, for example, if a boy or a girl goes out for a job, the family is back home. So that vital link with home is always there. But those people or that person is now in a host country. So it's a medium of information, as we talked about, socialization, acculturation, and entertainment, and helps newer groups to participate and become a part of the larger global community. So a person is grappling with a new culture and still trying to find a sense of being, an identity. And that is where, people who move suddenly feel a sense of emptiness because they are trying to grapple with an identity which was at one time there at the home country and now is at a host country, which is totally different from what there was at the home country. In fact, the diasporic media facilitates the diaspora in assimilation, synchronism, and negotiating their identities. Remember, that's why I started by saying if we are able to understand identities, and more often than not, most of us do not start by asking, who am I? We tend to come across an identity much later in life. And a whole lot of people who are not able to reconcile identities are typically the ones who seem to drift apart because they are not able to figure out who they actually are. So, for example, the non-resident Indians are not able to figure out whether they are today, let's say, Americans or are they Indians. And somewhere a lot of these guys, not the next generation, but the first generation who moves, you would see a certain amount of conflict in their behavior, in their sense, because it's a conflict of identity. And especially today, in the wake of globalization and re-territorization, these things become all the more relevant. Because today, if you see, there is another new thing which has happened. Earlier, the diaspora used to typically be, let's say, British came over to India, took a lot of people as slaves earlier, then as indentured labor, and they were forced to move. Today, in today's globalized time, a lot of people move because of opportunities. So the whole concept of diaspora itself has become greatly complexed. In fact, today with digital happening, we have something called digital nomads. People who are not willing to stay at one particular place. So diasporic media have proliferated in the past 2 decades thanks to advances in information technology. The latter are partly driven by awareness among policymakers in developed. So now you need to understand there is also this thing, let's say in a host country, there is this ethnic minority. Let's say there are Indians in America. Now the American politics or the American policymakers would also now want to get across their messages to these ethnic minorities. And that's where diasporic media comes in, because diasporic media are set up by the migrants or by the diaspora for themselves. And the host country then uses diasporic media to communicate to those people across increasingly multi-ethnic constituencies. And today, all countries, if you see, are almost multi-ethnic constituencies. The psychological and emotional needs is stronger because the strong sense of belonging and identity. So more often than not, it's something like this. If some of you, let's say, who are staying in Telangana, come to Delhi or come to a northern India states, more often than not, you people from Telangana will tend to come together because you are now in an alien place. Delhi is an alien place for you. In spite of the fact Delhi and Telangana fall in the same country, but our country also is so diverse and so multicultural that people from Telangana who come to Delhi will tend to stay together. And more often than stay together, you will use media to communicate with each other, because you are now in a different culture, your sense of identity, your sense of self-expression, etc., etc., etc. So, and although human migration has been an ongoing process, and if you know anthropology, more often than not, human beings evolved in Africa, moved all around. So migration has all along been there. But we tend to diaspora studies started much later. It was the imperial diaspora who shared a direct link with the diasporic media. So as the imperial diaspora and as colonization took place, the English, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, as they went about making colonies, they were the ones who started communication back home. Okay, and earlier it was the pamphlets, the print, and in the print books, migrants used to narrate their experiences and communicate with fellow immigrants. Some of these books have been very popular. So, for example, Theodor Herzl, Jewish Austro-Hungarian journalist book, The Jewish State became the driving force behind the Zionist movements, Black Diaspora. So, inevitably, books have a very powerful role. In fact, for all those people who now come up with this statement that people have stopped reading, people are on social media, you'll be surprised to know that books are still selling, books are still getting published, people still want hard copies. So in fact, my latest book, which I released as an ebook, I get a lot of queries where say, can I get a hard copy? In fact, the objective of launching an ebook was that today my book is accessible across the world. A print copy, unfortunately, cannot be accessed across the world, because if I get published in India, then I can only access the Indian market or possibly the Nepalese market. But an ebook today is an access across the world. So let's look a little bit at the origins. How it came about is inevitably the mainstream media does not cover all issues related to diaspora unless these issues are of social and political relevance. And because the diaspora is a minority, more often than not, they are not of social or political relevance. So initially, to attract attention, what the diasporic community used to do was to write letters to the editor. This we are talking about is the pre-internet era, before the internet started. To meet the information need, the diasporic group started their own newspapers and magazines. And this is the same reason why when the cable TV came in, or the satellite TV came in, and the radio station came in, diasporic community tried to start a radio station or TV. Remember the fact that electronic media is much more expensive. You need more investments to do a radio or a TV. And that's where internet was a game changer. So now the diasporic media was fine in terms of communication, but they were not getting the visibility for a simple reason, because they were a minority. Whenever the policymakers or establishment wanted to call press conferences, diasporic media was not invited. Sourcing routine of most diasporic. So inevitably, how the diasporic media worked was by surveillance of the mainstream media. And that's where also the internet has become a game changer. We will come to the digital diaspora. For example, Indian indentured laborers in Fiji started a newspaper called Fiji Samachar to address problem, a bilingual monthly newspaper, which was made a weekly subsidiary. So these are some examples that I'm giving in between. There was this example of the Indian sociologist. So when you see the course material, the Indian sociologist is there. It was started by an Indian, and Bande Matram was started by Bikaji Kama Place, Bikaji Kama, and Talwar also, a newspaper which was started, which is also there in your course material. So let's look at a history of diasporic media. It was the Jews diaspora which was quick in seizing the print media opportunity. We are still talking a little bit on the print. In 1886, when Hayom, a daily newspaper in Hebrew language, was launched in Russia. The tagline is to lay bare the facts, indications, and events before the reader and let them judge them as they see it. In fact, a lot of our newspapers today have a lot of similar taglines, sabse tez, or tells the truth. And the newspaper was launched in response to a growing sense of nationalism among Jews, and anti-Semitic violence was growing. We have read about anti-Semitic violence in Europe, but Russia also had a lot of anti-Semitic violence, where Jews were getting persecuted. Now, the earliest case of media was writing letters and sending photographs or making expensive, when phone came much later. The post would, and more often than not, when you write a letter, it would travel through, through a ship. Remember, the plane airmail was still not there. A lot of time involves cost, and there was a risk of getting lost or confiscated in case of refugees. So writing letters and sending photographs then moved to satellite television. Audio recording and cassettes were also used. Video and cinema came in later. And video and cinema was especially in case of illiteracy and multilingualism. In fact, that's one of the reasons why TikTok acquired so much of fame in India, because TikTok is a social media which can be used by an illiterate or a multilingual person. You do not need to know a language to be able to use TikTok. That's the beauty of video. And if you notice and if you see around, more often than not, the new media, which is internet, which is digital, only extends the reach of the traditional media, which is the print, radio, and TV. So everything is the same. Now we have a technology which is faster and has a reach which is irrespective of space and time. And that's where we will introduce the digital media. In the era of internet, now phone booth queuing, video rental store, and satellite dishes are all gone. To add to it, with ubiquitous Wi-Fi, smartphones, and streaming, the ways of engaging space and time have drastically changed. Today, any person at any distant corner of the earth can talk to any person at home using a smartphone at their convenience, at their time of choosing. Digital media makes physical distances shrink through digital proximities. Okay, let me quickly come on to digital diasporas. We are a little short on time. So digital diasporas is a new term which has come because of advancements in communication technology. Digital diasporas also have multiple takes. For example, e-diasporas, net diasporas, web diasporas. And digital diasporas, online diasporas are seen as a part of the media ecosystem, in which online and offline activities are accounted for differently. But more often than not, one needs to understand the online tends to most of the time mirror the offline. So when today you see or you feel there's a lot of hate which is going on online, it tends to mirror what is happening in people offline. And it's not an Indian kind of situation, it's a world kind of situation. Remember, the digital always mirrors the real. So for example, the example of this particular website, if you notice, the website is updated 5th April 2023. So it's absolutely recent. And it talks about Kenya or Kenyan diaspora. So there is latest news, there is Kenya news, there is obituaries, inspirational editorials, and other news. So this is an example of a digital diaspora or a web diaspora or an online diaspora, depending on whose definition are we saying. Digital connectivity has transformed privileged terms of spatiality, belonging, and self-identification. Those earlier, scrambling by the diasporas to connect, to be able to communicate, to express, digital has made it very simple now. New possible cartographies to map the self in relation to an increasing complex patterns of globalization and localization. Remember, today, no longer does diaspora or migration happen because of forcefulness, slavery, or indentured, or by armies moving people. A lot of migration happens out of opportunities. Today, a lot of youngsters are almost global citizens moving from one country to another in search for occupation, while avoiding closures and negative effect of identity politics. It allows different script to be envisaged for politics of emotion, understanding of motives, nature, and impact of migrant experience. So think about it today with a messaging app like WhatsApp. In spite of the fact that I am sitting in, let's say, Canada, I could be speaking, if I was a youngster and I'm working in Canada, I could be speaking to my parents 5 or 6 times a day. It's almost like I am in their house. I'm just working somewhere, but I'm in their house. The possibility for negotiating multiple beings. So you are, and more often than not, all of us are negotiating multiple belongings. So here I'm belonging to a host country, I'm belonging to a particular organization, I'm belonging to a particular society, and I've got a home country where my belonging is with my relatives, my parents, etc. E-diasporas, net diasporas, web diasporas are studied in technology and communication studies, more on medium specific. Let's leave this. Let's leave this. There are new terms which has come in because of digital diasporas. So there is something called ye diasporas, are studied in relation to young migrants and the way they construct communities of belonging online. Remember the fact that at each age, a sense of belonging is totally different. More often than not, we have also seen that children are more easily adjusted to a new surroundings than the adults, because adults get set in a particular way of life. Youngsters are much more malleable that way. However, Donna in a 2014 studies talked about concept of ye diasporas. And besides that, there is something called a beach diasporas. Communities that become diasporas without crossing international borders, such as Russian speakers living in post-Soviet republics after the collapse of Soviet Union. or Turkish minorities in Thrace, Greece, as a vestige of the Ottoman past. So they are called beach diasporas. These are Turks who never left Turkey, but they are Greek citizens following the formation of a new nation. And that's why today, in this particular situation, there is a whole lot of changing in terms of how we understand diasporas itself and about the concept of identity and belonging. So oppressed minorities or endangered groups, often organized in diasporas, use the internet to keep up with their homeland and native culture, thus strengthening their ethnic ties and lessening their isolation. In fact, you'll be surprised the fact that a lot of non-resident Indians in America seem to be more traditionals than the Indians living in India. And this has been a very interesting chatter which goes on as to how these people somehow have maintained their much more conservative and traditional Indianness than what the Indians in India have done. Certain diasporas aim to represent suppressed or marginalized group to preserve their threatened ethnicity. So for example, Etrians. Etrian is not even a country, living in exile and active online, or Slavs, who formed the first online nation. Internet has allowed all these communities to preserve culture and a sense of being. And Burmese that use the internet primarily for expressing political goals. Trinis living outside the Trinidadian Caribbean territory, but tightly bonded online. In fact, WhatsApp is not even a social media. WhatsApp is not defined as a social media, but a messaging app. Today, a whole lot of communities are thriving on messaging apps like Telegram, WhatsApp, or Signal, where they continuously exchange messages, their belongings, their culture. So, there's a whole lot of new things which are happening with the digital in the digital ecosystem. Iranians and Turkish Kurdish migrants in Netherlands reinforce their geographical identity rather than become more deteriorized. So let's look at an example. Let's move further. Endangered of can recreate. Also, they have different effects. For example, engagement of diasporas abroad can recreate conflicts, such as the case of Somalia, where long-standing and usually well-intentioned international community engagements tends to have a misguided approach that often exacerbates the conflict. We are seeing a lot of NRIs who seem to be giving advice to Indians about Indian culture. These are people who are foreign nationals, who have American and European citizenship. They are diasporas, and they tend to be giving advice and almost pushing the national politics into particular directions. Similarly, Somali diasporas played a complex conflict in their homeland. Now with the internet and the fast moving of information, influences can work both ways. See, internet is not a single flow medium. Unlike print, radio, and TV, which are single flow, internet flows both ways. So today, for example, the national politics tries to influence the diasporas to be able to get the messages back home. It's a very interesting thing. And it's not just India, it's across the world. We are seeing how that engagement with diaspora is happening because of the advent of internet and digital media. And typically in Somalia, the diasporic media occupies a hegemonic position and supersedes media based in Somali territories in both quality and quantity. So so inevitably everybody who thought that diasporic media would have a particular function as we had originally envisaged, now those functions themselves are becoming malleable. So today, the American diasporic media or the European diasporic media, Indian diasporic media is also trying to influence the national politics in India, which is it's how the functions have changed. Internet allows for creation of elastic political space, which can serve and extend as well as expose the limits of territorial sovereignty. In this sense, digital media change what diaspora means for people and nations. So initially, the way diasporic media was conceptualized, digital media has changed all that. So diasporic groups are now in touch with the homeland in ways that were not possible for classic diasporas. And the whole concept has turned on its head. So there are various studies. Bernal has done this study in 2014. Equally new forms of digital securitization are introduced that use system of surveillance and control. So more often than not, the digital, which is also used in speeding up communication, is also used as a method for surveillance. And if you were to look at, the narrative of a Western, imagination, then it becomes a potential threat to Western democracy. Therefore, monitored through databases and biometrics in order to link national security to migration and international terrorism. So that's also a new thing which has happened because of the coming of digital in diasporic media. Okay, we are almost out of time. Let's quickly look at diaspora and media impact, importance for the dynamics of the state and economic flow, but also the role of political influence. Can easily participate in conflicts in the homeland and live their politics remotely. So this 1992 study by Anderson, and we are seeing this. We are seeing this in respect to India. We are seeing it in respect to Burma. We are seeing it in respect to multiple countries. Long distance nationalism, meaning in part the conservative influence that National Party can have on diasporic citizens. So we are seeing this. Let me quickly. Then there is the concept of home country diasporic media. So now, typically, instead of a diasporic media established in the host country, you could also have a home country diasporic media. Crucial role in economy in the home country through remittances, their role came to be increasingly recognized and began finding a place in local media. So today, for example, there was this news item in Canada of certain students from Punjab who had gone there through some agents onto some universities, which turned out to be fake. And now the Canadian government is planning on deporting these students. Now that is becoming an issue in the local Punjab media. So, relevance of home country in diasporic media becomes, that has also happened. For example, Indian states like Kerala, Punjab have a large number of overseas citizens that contribute to state's economy. And then they become an important constituent in the social and political life of the states. Okay, let's move this. And now we are grappling with the concept of global. There is a globalization process which is happening, and there's a hyper-local diasporic media which is coming about. Diaspora itself is so fragmented, and media today, especially with the coming of social media, has become so fragmented that there is hyper-local diasporic media. So let me give you an example of hyper-local. This is what is called a hyper-local. How China's hottest social media app turned Dusseldorf into a foodie destination. Chinese from across Europe are logging into this app and coming to Dusseldorf thanks to this app. The app is called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Zongshu, has inspired a wave of travel by Chinese diaspora in Europe to unexpected destinations like Dusseldorf in Germany in the quest to find Chinese food. This is extremely hyper-local. A place, a particular cuisine or a type of cuisine, and people are traveling across. Has become central to the lives of students and young professionals in Chinese diaspora. Okay. So these are basically about Zongxi. I will move on. Let's sum it up. Role of media and diasporic affairs to negotiate between various identities in host and home countries. Evolution of media and diasporic affairs from pamphlets to newspapers to books, satellite, TV, audio, and cinema to website forums and social media. Change in diasporic definition and how engagement with media happens with new media engagement, new categories like Ye Diaspora and Beach Diaspora, and globalized and hyper-local media now available for diaspora due to the internet. You can see the references from the module which has been given to you. In case you are interested in reading a little bit more about media, how media interacts, how human beings engage with media, these are my two books. One is on new media, which you can get, both of them are available on Amazon. You can get an idea about new media, about how it interacts, what are the new rules it follows. And if you need to know about how mass communication works, how how the effects of a particular message happens on people, you can read about mass communication. I think I'll stop here. Any questions? We've already exceeded time. I am in case you are on Twitter, you can follow me on my Twitter handle. I'm putting it in the chat. Any questions? Nirmal, Rehma.
Sir,
Yes, Swadesh.
good class today.
Thank you. I did feel a lot of times I was hurrying up because I think
I am closely worked with the Gulf
Swadesh,
since 2017. Yes, sir.
Swadesh, your voice is breaking.
Oh God.
Tell me.
This Gulf migration domain.
Are
you getting, sir?
Yeah, I'm listening.
But these diaspora organizations are very weak compared to European Union. Now, if you take politically also, they very big power. US, Canada, UK, diaspora organizations, Telugu, Tana, like this organizations. They are very powerful.
Okay.
Things and networks. But these Gulf migrant workers, they're not coming to political political leaders. They're not becoming. I am as a migrant rights activist. This assembly and it's a political. Don't take very.
So Swadesh, why are they not doing it in the Gulf?
Coming elections, we are getting some seats from these political parties to our leaders, Gulf migrant workers, and you are like me, activists and union leaders and returnee migrants. They also coming forward to contest in the assembly and parliament elections. This happens, sir. US and UK, Canada. That people only coming. They were putting NRI after that name. They coming into politics, but these Gulf migrants and
why do you think they are not happening in the Gulf? Is the Gulf states, not allowing migrants to come together as groups. Is that the case?
Yeah, sir. But these diasporas are not strong, politically not strong.
Why are they not politically strong? Is it because of the fact that people who are migrating to the Gulf come from a particular socio-economic background?
Yeah, sir. Gulf is a temporary migration, that also one cause.
So that could
They
be the
don't have
case.
green cards and H1B1
So
visa.
that could be the case. So
Yeah, sir.
so Sudesh, that's what I will see. That's why I started to talk about identity, because identity becomes a very important keyword in whenever we talk about diaspora. And then the media is a way to facilitate that identity question.
Yes.
Okay, Swadesh?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, great. Any other
Thank you,
question?
sir.
Any other question? Rema, Vijaya?
Sir, regarding participation of Gulf migrants in politics, I totally deny what Mr. Swadesh has said.
Okay.
Even the Gulf migrants, they are much involved in, but the thing is here, since we don't have citizenship, we cannot claim for. Along with that, here not allowed to organize any political associations or any kind of associations. But still, there are many associations are functioning unofficially. But even the political groups also are there. If you see to the Europe in Gulf, they are more active for the rights.
Okay.
That's one thing. Then regarding the Canadian universities, as you said, they are planning to send students back. Like for Indian certificates, like Indian universities, if they are like last time, some of the engineers, they have lost jobs because their engineering degrees were they don't have NBA accreditation. So that's why they have lost the jobs, but they found some other jobs. So Indian government is still working on it and nothing has happened. So there are so many, like for example, even the IGNU, it has a branch everywhere, but the certificates acquired from these universities are not recognized either in private or government. So there are so many issues. Just I'm sharing my
no, absolutely. Vijaya,
there is no question
more often than not, perfectly fine. Vijaya, more often than not, these are all perspectives that we share. When we share perspectives, all of us tend to gather certain things from perspectives. And these perspectives in media are the way we are then understanding situations. So Swadesh could also be right. You could also be right. You are looking at it from different point of view. Swadesh, Vijaya?
Yes, sir. I got it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. And as I said,
but now how to work on that, you have to tell.
Work on what?
To make these people involve and legally how they can involve in this, we cannot change the policies which GCC countries are having.
Correct.
But there can be certain amendments.
Correct.
So how we can ask a government to amend the policies?
So more often than not, Vijaya, this is a very complex question, and I don't think so I am the right person to be able to answer you this question. More often than not, these are complex negotiations between, and there is a certain amount of politics involved in terms of how you are interacting with, the policymakers in India. Let's say the External Affairs Ministry or the Home Ministry, or influencing governments to push those governments into allowing that thing. These are complex negotiations. More often than not, people in the host country also work out with the local politics and the local politicians and local policymakers to try and move things forward. This is not there is no set way things work out. These are complex negotiations, and more often than not, people who are there working out there or interacting know the best way to go about it. Vijaya?
Okay, sir. Noted.
So more often than not, as you are going through this course and you are, meeting people, there are new thoughts which come across. So for example, a diasporic media which talks about these issues could be used as an influencing media for the host country politicians and for the home country politicians discussing such issues. Digital, in fact, becomes a very interesting two-way tool, or in fact, it not only does a multicast or a broadcast to multiple constituents, it can also narrowcast to specific constituents. Vijaya?
Yes, sir. I'm with you. I'm listening.
Okay. Any other question? So I have already typed in case you are on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter. I have shared my books. My books are there on Amazon. In case you want to read a little bit about media, get a basic understanding on media. And in case there is no question, then we are already out of time. We can close the session. Sada, can we close the session?
Sabha, we'll close now.
Okay.
Thank you so much for very interesting talk.
Okay.
And thank all the participants, our students, for interacting so well and bringing more issues, in fact, to make it more exciting. Thank you all.
Wonderful. Have a